Edward McPherson's farm was a half-mile west of Gettysburg, atop the ridge that also bears his name. The area was the scene of intense fighting on July 1, 1863, as Confederate General Henry Haight's division advanced towards Gettysburg against defending Union cavalry under General John Buford. Union reinforcements from General John Reynolds' 1st Corps arrived and counterattacked, and fighting swirled through McPherson's pasturelands and 2 fields planted in corn and wheat, as well as through neighbor John Herbst's woods. McPherson's barn became a place of refuge for the wounded, and continued as a hospital long after the battle ended. McPherson was a lawyer and journalist who had served in the U.S. House of Representatives from 1859 until March of 1863. A radical Republican, he had lost the 1862 election, after which President Lincoln appointed him as Deputy Commissioner of Internal Revenue, and was living in Washington at the time of the battle. John Slentz and his family were renting the McPherson farm. They were ordered out as the fighting on the ridge intensified, and took refuge in the town. They returned to find the house ransacked and in use as a hospital, and lived in the nearby seminary for the next 3 months while the farm was made livable. The house burned in 1895. The barn is the last survivor of Edward McPherson's buildings, restored by the National Park Service in 1978. It is currently used by a local farmer who also leases the McPherson fields. The Battle of Gettysburg began about 8 a.m. to the west beyond the McPherson barn as United States cavalry confronted Confederate infantry advancing east along Chambersburg Pike. Heavy fighting spread north and south along this ridgeline as additional forces from both sides arrived. The Civil War is in its 3rd year. General Robert E. Lee and his Confederate Army of Northern Virginia begin to march north, where he hopes to engage the Union Army of the Potomac, now under the leadership of General George Meade. One of the most recognizable sites on the Lincoln Highway within Gettysburg is the McPherson Barn, an important Civil War site. The barn is in great shape with its familiar brown stone and white wood construction. There was a tremendous amount of fighting here in the fields during the first day of the war, making this one of the more notable Civil War sites, at least locally. On June 30, 1863, Union cavalry under John Buford camped on the large farm inherited by McPherson west of Gettysburg in Cumberland Township. The following day, Buford's men stubbornly held the ridgeline against Confederate infantry until reinforcements arrived, including the famed Iron Brigade. Fighting raged on McPherson's farm for much of the day, with thousands of men wounded or injured in the vicinity. The battle ruined the crops and pastures of McPherson's tenant farmer, John Slentz, and caused considerable damage to fences, buildings, property and supplies, for which McPherson was never compensated. McPherson sold the farm in 1868. The National Park Service bought the property in 1904 and now maintains the McPherson Barn, which still stands on the Gettysburg National Military Park. During July 1st fighting here, Barn was a prominent landmark and used to shelter various Union regiments from artillery and small arms fire. Sharpshooters or snipers occupied Barn and fired from embrasures located in gable walls. CSA General Harry Haight later surmised he was wounded by a shot from this barn. The position was overrun by overwhelming numbers of CONF infantry on afternoon of July 1st, stranding scores of wounded Union soldiers. These men lay unattended until July 6th, when the barn and other McPherson buildings were hastily transformed into an emergency field hospital. Interior was modified in late 1970s with inclusion of I-beams in stable and reconstructed lean-to sheds on west side.